We are back. It's weather for Weather Geeks time on December the 28th, 2015, back after the Christmas break, and hope you had a great Christmas with your friends and family. The weather sure was remarkable. It was, of course, very warm. We're going to do a big recap of not only December, but 2015 as a whole, all the big weather stories that impacted the Valley during this year. We'll do that on my weather blog either Wednesday or I might get it online on Thursday on New Year's Eve. So I think you'll find that pretty interesting. Lots of really interesting weather this year. Lots of peaks and valleys. We had the coldest February on record, and we'll probably have the warmest December on record, and lots of other really cool stuff, or at least interesting stuff, happened this year as well. All right, not going to spend a lot of time on the current radar because I'm recording this at about 7:20 p.m. Some of you will be watching this several hours after, but here's what the radar looked like anyway. At 7:20, it was raining across the valley, with more moderate rain about to push in. We've been keeping an eye on Mercer County this evening with a prolonged, or at least somewhat prolonged, period of rain with temperatures pretty close to freezing. It's inched up to 33, 34 in a lot of spots in Ohio, but in Mercer County, especially the eastern part of the county, temperatures are a little marginal this evening, and that's why the National Weather Service does have still a freezing rain advisory up for Mercer County. Now, it's up until tomorrow morning. I really think that they'll discontinue it well before that because the temperature is probably going to be well above freezing here before the evening is through. But anyway, still a concern for sidewalks and side streets perhaps, and parking lots, your car top, that sort of thing. But I suspect even the major roads are doing just fine over in Mercer County this evening. Actually, I want to back up here. I want to show you the kind of the broader view of this storm. This is a whopper of a storm system that's caused a lot of problems over the last couple of days with severe weather and flooding. The center of it out here across parts of Illinois and Indiana. Heavy snow up across the upper Midwest. Heavy thunderstorms down here in the deep south where the threat for severe weather continues this evening, although no more watches or warnings are in effect as far as severe weather. But look at all the flood watches and warnings out. Each of these little boxes is some sort of flood warning across the Mississippi Valley. Just remarkable. And some parts of the Mississippi Valley haven't seen this kind of flooding since the big flood of 1993, so it's a very unfortunate situation for them out there. All right, as far as what our radar will look like as we go into the overnight, it's going to rain. Here's the high-resolution rapid refresh showing the heaviest of the rain probably occurs this evening. As we go into the overnight, mostly light rain, taking us through the wee hours of our Tuesday morning. I think as we get into the daylight hours on Tuesday, there could be a residual shower up through about daybreak, but after 8, 9 o'clock, I don't think much happens tomorrow. Just a lot of clouds and temperatures starting to fall after a morning high in the upper 40s to around 50. As far as rainfall totals, what's already fallen, what's going to fall, our model's in pretty good agreement that we'll end up with an additional half an inch to an inch, probably half an inch to 3/4 of an inch when all is said and done, as far as additional rain on top of what's already fallen over the last few days. All right, temperatures in the 7 o'clock hour are on the rise ever so slowly. It's up to 39 in Pittsburgh. It's 34 in Youngstown, and again, 32-ish in many places in Mercer County. In fact, let me bring up our Mercer County readings. Let's see if we can get any to come in. Sometimes these are really spotty. Yeah, Sandy Lake at 32, Mercer 34. So, it's a real borderline situation over there. But certainly it's going to warm up overnight as this mild air off to the south and west pushes in. It's already up to 47 in Cincinnati, and I think that's about where we will be at the start of the day tomorrow. Again, our strong storm system moving north across parts of Illinois. Freezing rain and snow, not in our viewing area, but certainly parts of Michigan and Wisconsin. Now as we go into the day on Tuesday, the rain pushes away. We're left with clouds. Then for Wednesday, the RPM model here, not real impressed with moisture coming back in from the south. The other modeling does try to bring in some showers Wednesday afternoon. Don't think it's going to be a whole lot, though. And then the cold air pours in for the end of the week. We're talking much more seasonable patterns settling in as we go towards the end of 2015 on Thursday and the start of 2016 on Friday. So let's talk about the longer range. Now, the model's not going to pick up on it here, but I do think with the wind blowing off the lakes, we're talking about some lake effect snow showers up in the snow belts for New Year's Eve into New Year's Day. Probably not much more than flurries for our viewing area. Here's New Year's Day itself. A lot of clouds, chilly breezes. Notice the isobars are pretty packed together. Temperatures not much above freezing. In fact, might not even get above freezing on Friday. And I do think there'll be some flurries around from time to time. Good day to stay inside and watch some bowl games. All right, on Saturday, Another pretty cloudy day. Could be some flurries around. Again, there'll be some lake enhancement up in Ashtabula County, into Erie County, PA, into southwest New York. Then I think we'll try to clear things out early next week as high pressure builds across the Midwest. Looks like a pretty tranquil week next week as far as the weather pattern goes overall. All right, now I want to talk about the longer range. If you watched some of my Weather Geek videos over the past couple of weeks, I've been talking about how we might have to adjust our January forecast. This forecast is the one we put out at the end of October, right around Halloween, as part of our winter forecast. The modeling has been saying, hey, January is still is going to look warmer than average, warmer than our forecast. But there's been a turn over the last couple of days, and maybe even the last several days, that the models are starting to pick up on more cold shots during the course of January. And what it may end up being is that our original forecast, our original January forecast, may end up being pretty good. We might not have to adjust it a whole lot. Let me actually go back to that graphic. Our January forecast calls for a pretty close to average month as far as temperatures here. That it would be a big contrast to December, which is right now about 12 degrees above average here in Youngstown. We're running plus 12. So if we end up even at plus 1 or plus 2 in January, it's certainly going to be a noticeable change, even though it may technically be above average. But as I said, the modeling is starting to change its tune a little bit, suggesting that there'll be more cold shots and that our original forecast might not have to be tweaked too much. Here's a look at the last few runs of the climate forecast system. Previous runs had the core of the warmth kind of in through here. Not much different than December. Now the models are shifting the core of that warmth up into Alaska and into Western Canada. And when Alaska and Western Canada is warm, typically downstream, Great Lakes, Northeast, it tends to be cold. It's January, you expect it to be cold, but when I say cold, I mean relative to average. The model right now has the core of the colder than average temperatures across the southern tier of states. That's an interesting trend. Does this mean snow? A lot of snowplow drivers and people who love snow, they've been quizzing me about can we salvage this winter? Boy, if the climate models have a clue here, January might be colder than it looked a week or two ago, but it doesn't mean it's any snowier. There's a lot of dry anomalies showing up in our part of the country, and this would be a pretty classic signature of El Nino. El Nino winters tend to be on the drier side of normal across the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley. So that's the latest trends. We're starting to think January may be colder than we thought a week or two ago, but maybe pretty close to what we thought about 6 weeks ago. Snowfall, probably not going to be a super snowy month in January. Of course, we'll be keeping this up to date as we head into January. Full January preview coming up as part of that 2015 winter and full year review later this week. Thanks for watching tonight's Weather for Weather Geeks. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. And you can check out my forecast with the updated radar and everything else on 21 News at 11 tonight.